have the paper Human Computation, a Survey and Taxonomy of a Growing Field. It was written by Alexander J. Quinn and Benjamin B. Bederson, and it appeared at SIGCHI 2011 in a session on crowdsourcing. Quinn and Bederson wrote this paper, they say, in the conclusion, in order to stimulate new research in the area of human computation. The paper classifies human computation systems and looks at parallels between the different systems, and what they're trying to do is reveal the gaps, and this is where they see the opportunities for new research. So you want to read this paper in order to have more productive conversations about human computation and crowdsourcing. Okay, you may not believe exactly in the way that Quinn and Bederson break it down, but these dimensions that they identify do seem to really cover the critical axes that serve to differentiate and to make similar these different kinds of systems. And it's very helpful to discuss them along these lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do is give a brief overview of the basic taxonomy and then look at the dimensions. Okay, first of all, they started by pointing out that, well, human computation is not necessarily something new. Since the birth of artificial intelligence, researchers have been trying to estimate human-like capabilities such as language, visual processing, and reasoning. And Alan Turing wrote, actually in 1950, that what these things are trying to do is to emulate the operations done by a human computer. And by this human computer, he means a human being doing computational tasks. Okay, so human computation is not necessarily a new thing, but has taken on a new life, as Mohammed pointed out in his introduction, because of the new technological possibilities, the new platforms offered by the internet. So let's now turn to Figure 1, and this is the core of the taxonomy here. So basically the largest class is collective intelligence, and within collective intelligence we have distinguished crowdsourcing, social computing, and human computation. Okay, human computation is circled in black because the paper is mostly about human computation. We see that these categories overlap, and also that human computation protrudes here beyond collective intelligence. So we'll come back to that later. They also position data mining here on their taxonomy diagram, and data mining is partially collective intelligence, but a lot of it is not, as they'll point out. Okay, so let's look at this in a little bit more detail. Okay, first of all, we look at human computation. Defined as a paradigm for utilizing human processing power to solve problems that computers cannot yet solve. So this is the basic definition, and now we are going to skip a lot of things in this paper just to get at the core of it. So don't get distracted by this interesting diagram, which plots the use of the terms human computation and crowdsourcing in the literature. You can go back and look at the paper later if you would like to. Let's move right on to contrast human computation with crowdsourcing. Okay, so crowdsourcing is attributed to Jeff Howe in Wired magazine, and is defined as the act of taking a job traditionally performed by a designated agent and outsourcing it to an undefined, generally large group of people in the form of an open call. Okay, so what's the difference now between human computation and crowdsourcing then? Here it is in a nutshell in this box. Whereas human computation replaces computers with humans, crowdsourcing replaces traditional human workers with members of the public. Okay, so we see that the two are very close, but that crowdsourcing has this outsourcing connotation that also goes along with it. Okay, so that's human computation versus crowdsourcing. How about social computing? Well, social computing is often referred to as crowdsourcing, and I think in the broad definition of crowdsourcing, we can easily say that social computing does fall under it. But Quinn and Bederson want to get narrower here, and this is the definition of crowdsourcing versus social computing that I generally adopt. Okay, so technologies such as blogs, wikis, online communities are all examples of social computing. This is a broad scope, but here is the key distinction between human computation and social computing. Basically, social computing is done on systems that are designed to facilitate natural human social behavior, stuff that people would be doing anyway. It happens to be mediated by technology, and this is going to be social computing as opposed to human computation, which is not necessarily going to have any raison d'etre that extends beyond the system. Okay, finally here we turn to data mining. And the point they're trying to make, and remember that data mining in the diagram falls outside of the collective intelligence circle for the most part. They argue that data mining software itself does not constitute human computation. Okay, so consider PageRank. So basically, PageRank, many of the pages that are used that contribute to the PageRank algorithms were created and linked by humans. Okay, so does that make them part of human computation? Well, the work that humans did linking the pages was not really caused or directed by the system, and a lot of it just happened before PageRank was ever invented and exists outside the system. So they make this distinction, and they warn us that not just because you're doing data mining, don't decide that you're necessarily doing human computation. Okay, finally we turn here to collective intelligence. So remember, this is the large circle, the overarching category, which encompasses crowdsourcing and social computing and a lot of human computation. So basically, the collective intelligence is defined as groups of individuals doing things collectively that seem intelligent. Okay, so here it's interesting to look at why human computation does not fall completely within collective intelligence. And the reason is that some human computation could be performed by a single person in isolation. Okay, one person solved the problem, it's done, it's been solved by a human act. However, in order to be collective intelligence, many people would have had to have participated in that. Okay, so now we've seen the basic distinctions, and we've seen also how this can be used to do some nice reasoning on this. So we now go on, and we're going to take a look at the classification dimensions that are introduced here. And basically, this section starts out by pointing out, remember our common denominator here is that human computation systems rely on humans to provide units of work, and this is somehow aggregated. But within that, there's a lot of different variation. And this wonderful table here summarizes the dimension of variation and gives examples of it. I'm going to go through this quite quickly, and then we're going to move on in the video to look at some key examples of these tasks. I think this paper is very rich, so you probably will want to return to it and look at this in more detail. Okay, so let's look at the dimensions of human computation. First of all, we have what motivates the workers. In Mechanical Turk, it's often assumed to be pay. This was covered in more detail by Mohammed in his introductory lecture. He also mentioned the Help Find Jim search, which would be an example of a motivation by altruism. The ESP game, which I'm going to show you a bit of, is enjoyment. So basically, two people play together. They both say the same images, but they can't communicate with each other, and they have to agree on the same tag for the images. Some people are motivated by increasing their reputation, social reputation, and other times the work is implicit. For example, in reCAPTCHA, people are trying to accomplish another goal. They don't know they're doing a reCAPTCHA. I'll also show you an example of reCAPTCHA. Okay, so human computation systems differ also according to the quality control. I'm going to go into quality control more detail later when I cover a paper called Speaking to the Crowd, which talks about speech technology and crowdsourcing. So basically there are these different ways that quality is then enforced in human computation systems. Okay, so we move down here to aggregation. So aggregation is basically the way that different people's input is put together to come up with one whole input. For example, iterative improvement, people check each other's work. Collection just basically makes a whole heap of a collection. Okay, then we look at levels of human skills. So some require just visual understanding of images, like the ESP game that we'll see later. Some require language understanding and so forth. So these are the basic areas which humans are very good at, but computers are not, and typically are areas in which crowdsourcing is applied. Okay, then we have the process order when we combine automatic approaches with crowdsourcing. We can start with something generated by the computer, which goes to the worker, which then gets fed to the requester. That's how CAPTCHA does it, reCAPTCHA. And otherwise, the more traditional method where the requester formulates a microtask and then submits that to the worker. And finally, the task cardinality requests. So basically, is it many people working on many tasks? Is it many people working on one task? Is it few people working on one task, etc.? Okay, so those are the dimensions. And next time you find yourself in a discussion with your friends and colleagues about what the difference is between crowdsourcing, human computation, and social computing, I suggest that you structure your conversation along these dimensions. Even if you don't agree with Quinn and Bederson, it will make for a much more productive approach. So here you can see more detail about what is in the table, and we scroll down because I want to say a few words about the conclusion here. Okay, so basically, the conclusion, they're trying to stimulate new directions as we see. I want to draw attention to this paragraph right here. This is picking up on something that Mohammed mentioned at the end of his introduction. And I would just like to retweet this very loudly and clearly. They say, beyond new algorithms and designs, there's also a pressing need to address issues related to ethics and labor standards in crowdsourcing. Okay, so basically, we're sending out these little tasks into labor conditions. We have no idea what they're like. The people working do not have any guarantees that they will be paid, and there's no sense of what a fair wage is. And things like that. So the current state of human computation, they see, has a tendency to represent workers as faceless computational resources. This is not a sustainable way of looking at human computation. And so Quinn and Bederson tell us that as designers, we have the power to orient our systems to encourage positive working arrangements and fair pay as the default. So I think that's very important to keep in mind as we, rush to take advantage of this really powerful new paradigm to understand that we want it to scale sustainably. So it basically has advantages for all players involved. Okay, so finally they say, well, it is important for a community to agree on vocabulary. It is equally important to consider what is left out. So And this is an encouragement to look at their table and to start thinking about, okay, what didn't they cover, and what makes sense to cover then in the future with future research. Here we are at Freesound, where I am signing up for an account because I would like to download a Creative Commons audio recording with some noises of a crowd. Okay, you see I filled out the registration form, and we get to the bottom and it says, please prove you are not a robot. Here's our reCAPTCHA. Okay, so here I go. That looks like a capital O, and then temperance. And we see if that's going to work. Register. Yeah, okay. Now it gives me also the option of doing an audio reCAPTCHA. Let's see what that's about.
Please type every digit you hear. Spaces are not required.
Okay, let's do it. 2 what? Oh, play sound again.
Please type every digit you hear. Spaces are not required.
Okay, I don't get that at all. Here we are playing the ESP game. I'm in the middle of the game, and I'm trying to match a word that is going to be the same that is matched on the other side. There's another person playing against me. Let's see, this is a sheep. Let's see, this is a dirt bike. Oh, I keep on going. Mud, helmet, trees, fence, danger, track. Oh, partner kick, pass. Okay, matched on mud. Okay, here we go. Unavailable, pass. Window, Coke, board. Okay, matched on Coke. Here we go. What is that, a dog? Oh, matched on dog. Always match on the dog, man. Okay, save your points and register now. And in the chat room, okay, so there's a whole social community around this, but I'm not going to let this become an addictive part of my life. I also wanted to show Singo here. So here we are in Singo. Singo is a web service for listening to music, but it also collects annotations from music. And basically, people who are really into music, who know a lot about it, can come here, listen, and also contribute. This Singo is developed by the National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology in Japan. And here I've chosen one song for us to look at. It's called Still I'm Happy. And you see here that we have different kinds of information that are available about the song. Let's play the song. Okay, so we have different tracks indicating the melody, and here these are the beats that are being indicated, and here are the chords that are being indicated, like this. Okay, and then we get to the end of this, and then they start singing now. Okay, so now if we're good, we can actually edit this and correct problems with the beats. Okay, so here we hear the beat meter going in synchrony with the beat, the detected beat, and below these are various other hypotheses for where the beat can fall, and you can correct these. Now I'm not going to do it because I'm not good at this and I'm probably going to mess something up, but it shows you the possibility. And this is the system for the chord edit, so that you can change the chord that has been detected. Melody edit, chorus edit. Okay, this one detects when the chorus reoccurs in the song, and if there's a mistake in the automatic detection, then you can fix it. Okay, so you get the feeling that this one is maybe not for everybody, but it's just a very good example of a system where people are incentivized to participate because they have a particular love, they're good at something, and they want to contribute.